Drawing from 25 years plus of experience and advanced degrees in wellness related education, today's guest has combined personal coaching, corporate training, and public speaking to personally inform, influence, and inspire thousands on their journeys to becoming better beings. She recently released a book, The You Resolution, sharing her proven and practical strategies of true lifestyle change. Our latest project, the PFF is your BFF handbook, is ideal for anyone struggling to make healthy eating a lifestyle habit. Welcome to the show, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you. It is just my delight to be here. I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of mirrortalk podcast. I am super excited to learn more about healthy living from you and also know how to become a better person from you. But before we go down into this topic, can you tell me about your journey from being a competitive gymnast to becoming a coach who transforms the lives of thousands of people?
Yes, well, thank you. I would say it was very accidental. I certainly didn't have this vision in my mind as what I would be doing, 25 years now doing what I do. But I grew up a competitive gymnast back in the 80s and 90s in a small town in Wisconsin. And I loved gymnastics. But what I realized much, much later was I actually didn't love competition. Competition is not a value of mine, and I didn't know that at the time. But for all the great things I learned in gymnastics, just perseverance and hard work, um, uh, making sure that you are getting your rest and fueling your body properly, and also understanding that you might have to work harder than somebody else does to get maybe even not the best result, maybe even not the same result as somebody else's. So those were some, I think, really good life lessons to learn early on. And then my dream was always to live in Hawaii. That was kind of the plan since I was 8 years old, since my parents first brought us there on vacation one year. And so
Mm.
that plan finally got to come to fruition when I went to college. And I never intended to do competitive gymnastics post high school.
Oh, okay.
And entering college, it was really kind of, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought I wanted to be in the tourism industry, which is why Hawaii was a great fit. And then one semester of that, and I realized I hated it. And so fell into what really is my true passion, and that is human behavior and helping people. And so got my degrees in psychology and nutrition, and then went on to University of Colorado Boulder for my master's in kinesiology. And I would say it's really there where everything sort of kind of fell into place. I really stumbled into personal training. And as the wellness industry changed and evolved, and we here went through different economic situations, I had to evolve in my own business as well. And that's really how I got to be more of a wellness coach and facilitate workshops and host retreats and do all kinds of public speaking. And really, because of my own journey and working with lots of different people, that really is my mission, to help people be better human beings, whatever that might mean to them at this particular moment in time.
Yes, that's a very awesome story. I enjoyed the way you talk about evolving and changing and all of this moving you in the right direction with different circumstances in life, and now you are here influencing the lives of thousands of people with everything you've experienced and everything you've learned so far in life. That is amazing. That is so great. That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I feel very fortunate, quite honestly, to be able to live what you love and
Mm.
make a living doing what you love. I mean, I think that's everybody's desire. And I wish I could say, oh, this was my plan and I had it this way and it all turned out. I mean, sometimes the best things do really happen by accident.
Mm.
But I will say it's the willingness to be open and to evolve and to continue to educate and learn and grow, maybe to unlearn some things. I know I had to unlearn and relearn a few things because things have changed, and what we know about health and well-being has
Mm.
changed as well. And I do find in my coaching, there's still a lot of the old message that is so ingrained in people,
Mm.
and it's a really hard mindset to change. And I know it is because I also had to do it myself. So I feel like having that ability to relate, because they are experiences I have also personally gone through, is very helpful from the coaching side.
Yes, but how is that like like for a coach like you who have you have strategies, you have plans set out. Maybe in the next 10 years it all changes. How does that feel like to you? Like working with all of these changes. Like 10 years ago you taught this method and 10 years afterwards it's no more valid. How does that work?
Well, I think it's up to us to really evaluate all of the information, right? And
Mm.
to then use our critical thinking skills, which sometimes need to be honed a little bit, not
Yeah.
just believe the magic words that somebody says, or what you read, or grab onto that soundbite, because that's what we really want. We want the quick fix, we want the easy answer, but
Mm.
more often than not it's just not that simple. So I think for me, I had to evaluate as new information came out. Okay, does this make sense? Does it
Mm.
not make sense? What about what we used to know has proven to not be true anymore? And has that shifted my way of thinking as well as my own choices? But also looking at a much bigger perspective, that just because something worked or didn't work for me doesn't mean that same thing is going to work or not work for somebody else. So it's not always just relearning, but it's also just getting different perspectives, and getting a broader sense of what may or may not be applicable to somebody based on their particular situation and circumstances.
Yeah, that's very good. That's true. So we should not just be rigid and say, okay, this is the way I learned it. That's how it's supposed to be for the rest of my life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we get very stuck in that, and I know I have as well. And it's hard, right? Change is just hard in general, and
Mm.
when you've had information kind of drilled into your brain for so long, or maybe you actually were never taught it,
Mm.
you just were able to do things in your life at a certain time, and it didn't appear to be affecting you in a negative way.
Mm.
So you assume that you'll always be able to engage in those habits, and they will never affect you in a negative way.
Yeah.
And that is also a big challenge for many people. I work with lots of people who say, oh, I used to be able to eat whatever I wanted,
Mm.
and except that you're not that person anymore, right? Things have been very different. Or I used to, just be able to lose 5 pounds just like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, used to is great, but your reality is right now. So, what do we have to do differently to adjust for how your body has changed, how
Mm.
your life situation has changed? Because those are all going to impact, obviously, the overall outcome of whatever goal it is that you're trying to reach.
Yes, that's true. And talking about aids to help you to achieve your goals for now. You wrote two awesome books that I would love us to talk about. But let us start with the U Revolution. Yes, the U Revolution. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? Is the U Revolution?
Yes,
So
yes.
let's talk about the U Revolution, the journey of a better being, the journey of a better being. It is packed, with practical tools to empower us to improve our physical, mental, and emotional health. So, can you tell me more about this book and the inspiration behind it, as well as those tools that could help me to improve my health?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. The U Revolution, again, sort of happened by accident. I had one of my corporate clients come to me and ask me to create a robust personal growth and development surrounding well-being program for one of their clients that had a wellness program and wanted to offer something like that for their
Mm.
employees. So I reflected in my own life and my own journey. Well, what does it take to create a healthy, happy human? Turns out it takes a lot. It takes a lot. We have to feed it properly. We have to move it. We have to understand our stressors and how to manage them. We need to get our sleep. We should probably have some basic understanding of the human body as a specimen, like blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, how those things impact my health, how my choices impact those biometrics. I think attitude and mindset are huge. I mean, they're probably the foundation of all of it. And so that's really what the U Revolution is. It's addressing everything that a human specimen needs in order to reduce risk for disease, but ideally in order to thrive. And then the journey of a better being, I thread all of my personal stories and my own stories of my journey of health and well-being throughout the book. So whatever the chapter is talking about, I have a story about it. And I like to share from personal experience, because what I have found is we're all very much more alike than we are different.
Mm.
It might be packaged differently. The challenge or the obstacle might look a little bit different, but I really truly say probably at this point I've interacted with thousands of people, and we're very common humans. We
Mm.
really are. And so I know that if I struggled with it, probably somebody else is struggling with it, and maybe they can just make their journey a little easier
Mm.
if I share my solutions to that particular obstacle. So I find that by sharing, my own challenges as well as my solutions around those challenges, I think that's the best way for me to help people.
People, yes. So are there like some of these tools that you could walk us through, or you could tell me about, for example, that I could use to improve my health, so that listeners out there could also benefit from it and go purchase the book?
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, understanding the human body, we really aren't taught that. I don't know, if your audience is taught that, but I know growing up in school, we're taught some basics, but we really aren't taught a lot about how our brain interacts with the rest of our body. We have this idea that we're very disconnected, right? It's mind body,
Mm.
except that the mind is part of your body. This is actually one whole specimen. And I know when I really started to make the connection that what I think up in here creates some kind of feeling, and that feeling generates some kind of energy, and that energy leads to some kind of action.
Mm.
If it's negative, it's going to lead to something negative. That's almost always the way it goes.
Mm.
And we can't control what the thoughts that come in, but we do get to decide what we do with it. We have the option of controlling what we do with those thoughts.
Mm.
I would say this was probably the most recent piece of the puzzle in my own journey to come into play. Now, it's been there for quite some time now, but I wasn't really on board with this for a long time. Back when I was growing up, this wasn't a thing. Mindfulness has been having a movement in a moment, and it's
Mm.
great. So I think it's very common now to be talking about this, but this really wasn't a topic of conversation. And so for me to really dig deep and adjust my mindset, really get into my internal dialogue. How is that helping me? How is it hurting me? And then what do I need to do to change it? And I did discover that unless and until you change what's going on up here, very little else is going to change for the long term. Now, we can do anything for a short amount of time, but you have to have the belief, and you have to have the confidence that you can implement certain strategies, and you have the skills to be able to overcome these obstacles. It's just hard. I think that's just the answer to everything. Healthy is
Yeah.
hard. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yes, that's true. And in your book, you mentioned some you talked about some points that has to do with, you know um how to make your hormones behave, and mindful eating tools, and also tips for a better night's sleep, for example. Can you tell me, like, how can I make my hormones behave? How can I put my hormones under control?
That's such a great question. I love it. I love talking about hormones because they are either completely misunderstood or not even on somebody's radar.
Mm.
So your hormones are simply your body's chemical messengers, and we have about 50 different types of hormones in the human body. And they're literally sending messages to all of your systems, telling the systems what they need to be doing. And ideally, we have our hormones working when they're supposed to be working, not overworking, not being depleted, and they are balanced with each other in the way that they need to be balanced with each other. So, how we make our hormones behave, you're going to love this. It's very earth shattering. It's very not sexy. It's called the healthy lifestyle.
Mm.
It's what you put in your body affects lots and lots of hormones, from your hunger hormones to your blood sugar regulating hormones, insulin and glucagon, of course, your stress, fight or flight hormone, cortisol. It
Mm.
also can affect estrogen and testosterone and progesterone. What you put in your body impacts everything,
Mm.
not only from your body's ability to make your chemicals, but then what those chemicals are going to actually do based on what you just did or didn't put in your body. So it's high quality fuel, it's proper hydration. Lots of rest, repair, and recovery time. So we have to allow the body to get rest, and we can call that sleep.
Mm.
We also have to have things that give us a sense of joy, a sense of purpose, that makes us feel like we're valued and we're appreciated. And then we have to have minimal fight or flight experiences in our lives. So we call that stress, right? So stress management is a very big thing. It
Yeah.
has been always, but certainly in the last year and a half, it's been on the forefront of many people's minds.
Mm.
And, when we are in a state of chronic fight or flight, we are in a state of chronic hormonal imbalance,
Mm.
because that's what fight or flight is. The fight or flight response, your survival mechanism, is literally complete chemical chaos. Because back in the day, we had to really ramp up to survive real threats, and they were imminent threats. And so the body or the brain detects danger, it releases adrenaline and cortisol.
Mm.
Cortisol is kind of the stage manager of fight or flight. It's going to tell all the other hormones what to do based on the perceived nature of the threat.
Yeah.
So, under true fight or flight, this chemical imbalance is fabulous. It's what allows us to fight or flee or to behave in a way that the body doesn't really behave in under non threatening circumstances. Where we run into problems is because we're in a state of chronic fight or flight, because certain things will trigger us into that. And the body doesn't know the difference between an animal that's trying to eat you and something that's made you afraid.
Mm.
Right? It's the same reaction in the body. And so, how you make your hormones behave, it's eat properly, move your body. I mean, exercise is a huge one.
Yeah.
Minimal fight or flight experiences. So, manage your stress triggers. Set yourself up for the best night of sleep you possibly can get, and then work on the mindset to switch it to being more positive than negative, and of course, find purpose in your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I love the fact that you made mention of stress management. And now to ask you, how can I manage my stress? How can I mindfully I'm my undertake stress management? Sorry.
Yes. So when I think of stress management, I kind of break it down into two separate things. One is to evaluate your triggers, and a trigger is anything that gets you going. So any reaction or emotion that's tied to your fight or flight response, it's in fight or flight. So I want to identify a particular trigger. So something that gets me angry, irritated, frustrated, worried, annoyed. I have fear, I have anxiety, I have guilt.
Mm.
Those are all emotions and reactions that are part of your fight or flight system. And back in the day, those reactions and emotions were actually serving to protect us. They were there to protect us from danger, to help us survive a potential threat. Well, I'm guessing the things that get you going like that these days are probably not actual threats to your life in that moment, which means there's no need for your survival mechanism to kick in.
Yeah.
So you want to identify the triggers and then evaluate, is this a real threat to my life? And if you can answer no, it's not, then your goal is to teach yourself a way to respond differently so that you don't get angry, irritated, frustrated, annoyed, fear, have constant anxiety, are hanging on to guilt. And I mean, those are all really, long journeys for people to go on, depending on what the particular thing is.
Mm.
Some are very simple, some are really, really, really hard to adjust the mindset on those. So that's number one. Stress management is, let's just not get into fight or flight in the first place. But then we have to also put practices in place that will help us release the stress, right? So developing your emotional awareness, being very in tune with your emotions. If I'm angry, I should feel anger. I don't want to pretend I'm not angry if I really am. Let me be angry, and then let me evaluate, is this helping me? How long should I stay angry? What am I going to do about this thing that's making me angry? Can I do something about it? Is this a thing I can control? If it is, great, let me do something. If it's not, then my healthy choice is to steer my attention to something else. If I have, lots of busy thoughts, right? This is big for a lot of people, the very busy mind.
Mm.
Your busy mind is normal. It means you're human. It's very normal to be on high alert for danger. That's how we're wired. Back in the day, the person who was on high alert for danger and assumed that every noise they heard was a tiger that was going to eat them,
Mm.
even if they were wrong, it didn't matter, right? But when they were right, well, they're the one that survived. If you're the person who's just going along, no, there's no danger anywhere. Oh, that's just the wind making that noise, and you were wrong, and it was a tiger, you would have been eaten. So, this is part of survival, that busy, busy mind. But now you have to determine, is that necessary? Do I really need to be on high alert for danger every minute? Most likely not. And then I have to teach myself to redirect my thoughts, redirect my mind, learn how to create my calm. It's not about eliminating thoughts. I think people have a big misconception about that. You don't want to get rid of your thoughts. You don't want to get rid of negative thoughts. I mean, it's probably literally impossible to do that anyway. But you want to be able to evaluate what's going on in your mind and to determine for yourself if this is useful. Is it helpful? Is it necessary? If it's not any of those things, then okay, let me put some practices in place, like a deep breathing practice, a visualization practice, maybe a meditation practice,
Mm.
maybe it's a gratitude practice, perhaps it's journaling just to get your thoughts out every day, maybe it's going to therapy, it's an intuitive healer. I mean, we can do it in a whole bunch of different ways. The thing is you have to do it, right? That's the thing, is you actually have to
Yes.
do the work. And
Yes.
it's hard. Again, I mean, that's going to be the answer to everything. It's hard.
Yes. Talking of journaling, your book, the Resolution, comes with a journal also. So anyone who's interested could also buy the journal with the book also, just to put down your thoughts, put down your feelings into the book, your emotions, and process it day by day. Yeah, that's awesome. So one other point that I love us to talk about from the book is weight loss. So what is the truth about weight loss, and what are the strategies of you know losing weight for the rest of one's life, like lifetime or lifelong weight loss, and not just a diet for a short period of time and gaining the weight back, and the whole cycle.
Thank you for that question. That is the eternal question, isn't it? I mean, I've
Mm.
been on this planet for a number of years, and I remember growing up that my mom always had to lose 5 pounds. These were words out of her mouth.
Mm.
I have to lose 5 pounds. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, okay, I don't know why, but I guess this is just what you do. You have to lose 5 pounds.
Mm.
So weight loss is, I think that the conversation is never going to go away. And what's really interesting and I think quite disheartening is the more focus we've put on it, at least in this country, in America, the worse we've gotten. We are
Mm.
now at, I mean, ridiculous epidemic stages of obesity. And
Mm.
it's only getting worse. Our young people now are just accelerating the pace of obesity. And so I think part of why that's happened is because we don't want the truth. We want the quick fix.
Mm.
And everybody's out to give you this magic potion, this magic workout. Oh, if you just do this, if you just go on this diet. The truth is, you lose weight by burning more calories than you consume. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. It's just basic science. But the bigger picture that most people don't fully understand is what you put in your body, how much you put in your body, when you put it in, the ratio of the certain nutrients that you put in, all of that affects how you burn those calories.
Mm.
And then, of course, your activity, your movement, your body composition, your age, that plays a role, your hormones play a role. There are so many facets to actually long term weight loss. And then we have to get over the obstacles. Well, people tell me all the time, I know what I need to do, I'm just not doing it. Well, we got to bridge that gap, right?
Yeah.
Because knowing isn't super useful.
Mm.
And so we have to identify, and this was probably the biggest piece of my journey very early on. This is probably what really got me started being serious about my health. After I quit gymnastics, I kind of went on like a ha ha to the world tour. I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
If you know anything about gymnastics, it's helpful to be a rather small person. And that for me led to kind of an unhealthy relationship with food, lots of mixed messages and just I just internalized it in a very unhealthy way. So when I decided I was going to hang up the grips and no longer be a gymnast, I thought, oh, I was free. I can do whatever I want. This is amazing. And for me, that meant I could go eat whatever I want, whenever I want, as much as I want. I don't care. Ha ha, look at me. Except I actually did care. But boy, was it fun at the time.
Mm.
Except it really kind of wasn't, because all along that way, there was a lot of self sabotage going on in my brain.
Mm.
And, obviously, when you do that, you gain a lot of weight. So I gained over 50 pounds in a year and a half. And having spent a couple of years at that weight and really not loving myself in a lot of ways, and then going to Hawaii for college and just really not enjoying my first few years there, I realized that if I didn't make some pretty serious changes, it was only going to get worse. So I had to not only take a deep dive into understanding nutrition, which first of all meant I had to educate myself from the start, because what we learned back in the day was that fat is the devil. If you eat fat, you're going to get fat, you'll have a heart attack, and then you'll die. So a whole bunch of us thought we were making really good choices by not eating fat. Turns out we were just setting ourselves up for a whole bunch of problems. So I had to re-educate myself. I had to trust that maybe doing things differently could have a different outcome, and that's scary, right? But I also had to do a little dirty work in my own brain. I had to get messy. I had to uncover some stuff and work through some things like, why was I turning to food? Why was I eating all of this stuff when I know it's not helping me get to my goals? So identifying your particular emotional attachment, whether it's to food or your relationship with exercise. I mean, stress, that also impacts your ability to lose weight. So again, there's so many things that go into this formula. But on paper, we just look at it like, oh, my fitness pal said I ate this many calories, and my Fitbit says I burned this many calories. I should be losing weight.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that simple. And I think another just big myth that I am honestly shocked that people still think this, that eating like 1,200 calories a day as an adult human is the way to go. That's called starvation. And I work with so many women who literally are starving themselves into obesity. And I know that doesn't make sense for a lot of people, like cognitively, how can that happen? But when you don't eat enough to fuel your adult human specimen, it must be because there is no food. There's a food shortage. That's a famine, and then I'm going to die. Well, so here we go. Let's kick into survival mode. So fight or flight kicks in. I'm going to conserve energy, which means I'm slowing down metabolism, which means no processes in my body are working optimally. In addition, I'm going to kick out some cortisol and protect my organs. So what's going to happen is, let's say we really are in a famine, we're going to be losing a whole bunch of weight. That's what happens when you're starving. Eventually, I might lose so much weight that my organs are in danger. So as I release cortisol, the body is going to redirect fat storage around my belly, so that hopefully before the organs are in danger, we've gotten back into feasting mode. And then what happens is, because you probably can't stay on a restrictive diet like that forever, well, then it's a feast. So now I go and eat whatever I want, right? I'm off the diet, and I'm going to put all the weight back on and then some, because your metabolism has been so completely destroyed that it just knows a famine's coming again sometime. So we're just going to kind of hang out here, make sure we can survive that one too.
Yeah.
So it's a scary thing to recognize that you need to eat more in order to lose weight. And that it's a big, big mindset block for so many people. And I just continue to encourage people that you just got to trust the people who've been there and the people that do it and know it. And you just have to, at some point, recognize that the way you've been going about it hasn't worked. So let's perhaps go about it a different way. And I mean, at the end of the day, it might not work either, but there's a very good chance that it will.
It was, yes, yes. I really love that, because I myself have been asked that kind of question before. Like, Toby, I'm eating, I'm on this diet. I'm eating like low amount of food, for example, burning more calories, and I'm consuming or something like that. But I'm growing fatter. What's happening? What's the issue? And I'm always just like, yeah, dumbfounded. I don't know what to say about it. But this is the right answer. The metabolism also reduces. The rate of metabolism reduces, and one gets fatter that way.
And, I think so often we put the focus on the calories of the food. What
Mm,
we don't really focus on is the nutrients that food is giving us. If you're on such a low calorie diet, number one, that probably means you're not eating very much fat. And fat is essential for so many of your body processes to happen. But it also means you're not getting adequate amino acids from sources of protein. You're not getting adequate vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, all those things that you get from plants, which are
mm,
your carbohydrates. Because when you're consuming such a small quantity in terms of calories, it also means you're consuming a very small quantity in terms of nutrients. And those nutrients, those raw materials that the food gives us, are what this human specimen needs in order to function properly.
mm,
So if I'm not putting it in, I'm going to draw those nutrients out of my storage, which means I'm probably going to draw it out of my muscle because that's where I store a lot of nutrition. So now I'm also losing muscle mass, which means I'm also decreasing my metabolism because muscle is metabolically active. It burns calories 24/7. So, along with the nutrition piece of it, there has to be the exercise component. And I really believe everybody needs to engage in consistent strength training. I don't care, male, female, I don't care. I don't care what your goals are. If you want to be a healthy human and either facilitate fat loss or prevent fat gain, you want to remain independent when you're 50, 60, 80 years old,
yes.
you have to actively work to either build or maintain your muscle. Because if you don't have a job where you are lifting, pushing, pulling, carrying heavy things all day long, you're losing muscle every year, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And so definitely, I mean, one of the phrases in my book is hustle, hustle, build that muscle, because muscle is going to be your ally for the future and well into it. And I definitely encourage people to get on a consistent strength training routine.
For people out there who are like, saying, this is so strenuous, it's not so interesting for me to work out or to do some exercises. Can you like suggest some fun exercises or things that they could do to build up their muscles?
Well, I don't know if they're fun, right? Everybody's definition of fun is a little different. One thing that I also, the tough love trainer in me comes out and says, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes that's the answer, right? We don't get to like every single thing, but if you want an outcome,
Yes.
you have to do the things necessary to get that outcome. So I would say, even before we get into the particular exercises, you have to come up with your why. What is your personally meaningful reason for why you're going to do hard things?
Hmm.
Why are you going to make hard choices? Because let's face it, it's easier to not exercise than it is to exercise.
True.
So why are you going to exercise? Well, because I want to lose weight, I want to have energy, I want to whatever. Well, okay, then that should be a big enough motivator to do these things,
Yes.
right? But it also doesn't have to be very complicated. And I think we like to complicate things. We like things to be very fancy, and if they're not fancy, then they probably don't work.
Hmm.
It's very simple. I mean, if you are just starting out, it can be very simple. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you do 25 push-ups, maybe against the wall or the countertop, or you're on your knees on the floor, whatever level, but you do 25 of them, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Hmm.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you do body weight squats. Maybe you sit down into a chair and you stand up from the chair and you do that 25 times, or you sit against the wall like you're sitting in a chair. So you hold a wall sit for a minute. You throw in some planks, you work on your balance. Maybe you go up and down your stairs 10 times, put on some great music, get
Hmm.
yourself some nice clothes, good shoes, do whatever you need to do to jazz it up and make it fun. But I think we definitely get ourselves in all or nothing mindset.
Hmm.
And if I can't do it all, then I do nothing. And
Hmm.
this was never more apparent than when pandemic first hit and the gyms here closed down. And all these people are like, well, I can't work out because my gym closed. Like, you can't work out because your gym closed? What do you mean? You have a body. You can do jumping jacks. You can run up and down your stairs. You can do push-ups. You can probably get some resistance bands. They're not that expensive. Well, yeah, but I really like going to my CrossFit class because I like the camaraderie. And oh, okay. So the real answer is you can't do what you want to do, so you do nothing.
Hmm.
And I mean, that
Wow.
definitely isn't going to get us where we need to go. So I think part of being a better being
Yeah.
is the ability to be fluid and flexible as things change, as obstacles appear,
Hmm.
okay, well, not what can't I do, but what can I do? And let me do the best I can with the reality in which I currently exist, because ultimately, that's it. What else could you possibly ask for?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Wow. So it's just to find your why, your purpose. I want to be able to walk and be able to be fit by the time I'm 60, 100 years old. So right now I have to, build up some muscles so that I can do that. Mm.
Yeah, I think having a forward thinking vision is really important, right? We do get very busy in the day to day of life, and it's hard to imagine that what I'm doing today is going to make a difference 10 years from now.
Mm.
And I mean, that's the reality is no, one day isn't going to make a difference.
Mm.
One choice isn't going to make a difference,
Mm.
but it's the cumulative effect of the
Mm.
things that we're doing over and over, right? What's the habit? Is it more often than not I exercise and then I went for 5 days without exercising? Or is
Mm.
it, oh, I exercised for 5 days and then I went a whole bunch of time without exercising? Is it more often than not I'm eating really healthy food and then, yeah, I went on this holiday with my family and we ate all kinds of stuff and or is it, nah, mostly I'm eating like all kinds of stuff and every now and then I get on this, this little um, stint of putting like salad in my body. So you have to look at the big picture, and it's the overall, what are the habits, what's my consistent pattern, because that is really what is going to impact your outcome in the long run. And getting out of this idea that there's going to be some quick fix, that if I do this then this will happen, and it will probably happen overnight and it will have been super easy,
Yes,
because
yes,
that's not reality.
yes. And food is very important, and that's why I would love us to talk about your book. The PFF is your BFF handbook, best friend handbook. And PFF, as I understood, it stands for protein, fat, and fiber. And earlier you made mention that fat is actually very important, which is one thing I also have to work on myself to ensure that I have enough fats in my body or in my diet, in what I eat, for example. So can you tell me about this handbook, and can you also tell me about the power of combining protein, fat, and fiber at every meal or snacks that I have to take?
Yes, thank you. So the PFF is your BFF handbook is literally a simple guide to fueling your busy body. That's the subtitle. So, again, we like to make nutrition very complicated. And what am I supposed to eat? And don't eat that, and eat this. And we're supposed to eat this today, and that's going to kill you tomorrow. So I try to make it very, very simple. And again, nutrition was a huge piece of my own development and journey.
Mm.
And it was identifying that at the core of all of it is keeping your blood sugar steady.
Mm.
Steady blood sugar from the time you get up to the time you go to bed is the key to your life, truly.
Mm.
And how we achieve steady blood sugar is by eating protein, fat, and fiber, because those three things are very difficult for the body to break down. So they're going to provide a very slow, steady source of fuel to nourish your brain and your body so you can think and function.
Mm.
And then you have to refuel, so PFF, every 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
And you want to fuel mostly when you're up and functioning and need your fuel, and you don't need a whole bunch to lay down and go to bed. So PFF every 2 to 4 hours, most of your nourishment early and often in your day, less of it as you're getting closer to bedtime. That's kind of the basic strategy of how to eat.
Yeah.
And protein, fat, and fiber, again, it's about steady blood sugar, because if we allow ourselves to get in a cycle of spiking and crashing blood sugar,
Mm.
there's a very good chance that you're going to go eat sugar, because physiologically that's what you need.
Yes.
So I'll give you just a prime example. This happened to me daily
Mm.
back when I was going through like trying to figure out what to do. So again, this is early 90s, fat is the devil. I'm going to be good and not eat fat because I don't want to get any fatter than I already am.
Yeah.
So I would have a plain bagel, fat-free yogurt, and a banana. And I would be like, good job, me. I ate no fat. I ate really healthy food. I'm so good. I'm not going to have cookies today. And then, like an hour later, I literally, it's not that I wanted cookies, it's that I had to have them and I had to go find them. And I was going to die if I didn't get them.
Mm.
And what I learned is fat free yogurt, a bagel, and a banana is sugar, sugar, and sugar. There's
Mm.
a tiny amount of protein in that yogurt, but really none to speak of. And there's no fat anywhere. So I flooded my body with glucose It went out very quickly because all of that stuff breaks down very, very easily. And then I crashed. And when your blood sugar crashes, you physiologically need sugar. So at that point, it wasn't about willpower, even though that's what I thought it was. Like, gosh, what's wrong with you? You're such a loser. You can't not eat cookies. What is your deal?
Mm,
And then the cycle of self sabotage would kick in.
mm,
Well, again, going back to understanding how a human body works, you want to avoid those spikes and crashes. And protein, fat, and fiber are really what do that. A couple other reasons why you're going to want to embrace PFF as your BFF is because we have fat soluble vitamins, A, D, E, K. So, again, I think probably a very classic example, people will maybe decide to eat carrots as a snack instead of the chips that they normally eat. So, great, carrots are a real food, fabulous, but it's a carbohydrate all by itself. So, you're probably going to spike your blood sugar, it's going to crash, and then you're going to go get the chips anyway. But also, those carrots have a lot of vitamin A in
yeah,
the form of beta carotene.
mm,
Well, vitamin A is a fat soluble vitamin. So here I am making a much better choice by eating carrots instead of chips, but I'm not even getting the benefit of that better choice because I don't have any fat with it. So I'm not absorbing that beta carotene. So I'm putting great nutrition in my body and I'm getting literally zero benefit from it. So you need to eat fat with your food so that you absorb those nutrients.
yes.
Fat is also flavor, right? And fat works on your hunger hormone leptin. When you eat fat, it triggers the release of leptin. Leptin is the hormone that tells you you're satiated. Fiber works on your other hunger hormone, ghrelin. When you eat food that has fiber, as it travels through your digestive system, it absorbs water, expands, gets to your stomach, which is where ghrelin is produced. Ghrelin is the growler, it tells you you're hungry.
Yeah.
Well, as your stomach stretches and it shuts the production of ghrelin off, it's a lot easier to minimize what's going in if you don't have a hormone telling you that you're hungry.
Mm,
So those are the reasons that you're going to want to embrace PFF as your BFF. And the handbook, it's literally ideas of combination. So people tell me, oh, it's really complicated to eat healthy. And it totally can be. We could make anything complicated. We do that. But it doesn't have to be. It can be very, very simple. So you come up with foods that you like to eat, and then you figure out what food gives me protein, what food gives me fat, what food gives me fiber, and you come up with your combos. And so the handbook is just a whole bunch of ideas of combos. You might like some of them, you might hate some of them, but hopefully it'll at least get you thinking about, oh, well, I don't like that, but I could put it with that, and I
yes.
will like that. And then
Yeah.
it's very simple.
Oh, that's awesome. And you said we have to like eat like regularly this protein, fat, and fiber to some hours before we go to bed. So when is the best time to stop eating before going to bed? Like how many hours before going to bed should I stop eating?
I would say probably at least 3 hours before you go to bed. I don't know if if your listeners are familiar with intermittent fasting. It's kind of a big deal going around here. Um, what it means is there's a window of time that you eat and a window of time that you don't eat. What we've done here is we've gotten pretty good about eating breakfast because we hear all the time breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So we do
Yes.
that. But we're also staying up way too late, way past when we should have gone to bed, and we're eating.
Mm,
So we might not even have a 12-hour window of time where we're not putting something in our body. And that's the minimum. You want a minimum 12 hours of not putting something in your body to give your body time to rest.
mm,
So, up to a 16-hour window of fasting, I think is very doable for most people as a lifestyle. I personally do a 16-8 window where 8 hours I eat and
mm.
16 hours I don't eat.
Okay.
But that 8 hour window of eating, again, most of it should be early and often in my day. And if you nourish properly in that window of time, and you're going to consume a lot of food, most people don't even have a concept about how much food they actually should be eating. And that's
Mm,
an adjustment period. But when you consume adequately, you don't get hungry.
yeah.
That's the thing. So, digestion itself is very difficult on the body, and it's hard to get good, restful sleep if your body's busy working on breaking down food. You might not also fully absorb the food you're putting in your body because while you're trying to sleep, the body's chemicals are not really in a position to be digesting and breaking down the food because we're not supposed to have eaten and laid down. That's just not the
Mm.
way it used to work. So our
Yeah.
bodies are not ready to do that work.
Yeah.
So I would say, try to aim for a 3 hour cutoff before you go to bed.
Mm.
More if you're doing, a window of time and you're getting a lot of food in your body, then
Mm.
you might want to have a bigger window of time before you're going to bed.
Good. Yes, that's awesome. So I think this handbook is a must read for everyone to get to, just get some tips, get some strategies, some tools, how to improve one's health and one's way of eating, or yes, to get healthy living or healthy eating also. That's great. And you also have courses that you do apart from being an author, you're a public speaker, and you talk about wellness and corporate wellness, for example. Can you tell me about this? What's corporate wellness about, and how can I have a good atmosphere at my place of work? Or yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of companies are understanding that healthy employees are better employees, and just putting some value into their employees' well being overall is something that really has become relatively common. Not maybe as common as I am hoping it will become. But this idea of employee well being is, I think, incredibly critical. You
Mm.
know, your employees are humans first. And if
Yes.
your human is not well, then your employee is not going to produce or perform well.
Mm.
And since most humans spend a lot of time in the workplace, it's helpful if you have some kind of level of support to support their growth in their well being. And so, very often, I'm brought in to teach a variety of topics, and I teach on literally everything from stress management to knowing your numbers. So, a lot of times, people go to the doctor, get their blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, get all those numbers checked, but they don't really know actually what they mean, and they don't know what habits they're engaging in that could be impacting that number. So I can teach all about that. I teach on nutrition, I teach on mindset. So it's really any topic that is about enhancing or improving your physical, mental, or emotional well-being. So I might come in and do a lunch and learn, or I'll do a virtual session. Of course, that's been kind of the mainstay for the last 16, 17 months now,
Yes.
and which has been beautiful because obviously I can reach a much bigger audience doing that,
Mm.
and just spread the message of health and well-being within the workplace. And when you have people who are working together for a company, it's also nice if they're working together to support their needs to be a healthy human.
Mm.
And a lot of times we'll incorporate maybe some kind of activity for the month that helps you focus on a particular piece of your wellness. Let's get your veggies in. Everybody has to try a new vegetable this week or whatever. So we can incorporate, specific targeted tasks each time around as well. But yeah, that's through corporate wellness. I've also created U Revolution University,
Mm.
which is basically my online recorded content. And you can sign up to be a U Revolution University student and access all my content. There's one on one coaching available. So that's an option for people who might not have a wellness program at their company, or maybe you're self employed and that's just not something you're ever going to get. So you can still get wellness education through U Revolution University.
City. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show notes for this episode. So I would love everyone to click on the link where you can get information about the courses, the public speaking, and also the books that are available on Amazon to be purchased, and get a copy of the book to read. Anyone or both books to read, and improve your life and become better beings. That'll be awesome. That'll be great. And I love
Thank
the
you, Toby.
I love that. I love the fact that your mission is to help us have better minds, better bodies, and to be better beings in general. So can you tell me how to with this that kind of life where we have a lot of things to do, a lot of tasks to settle, or a lot of missions to accomplish in life. How do you work on your work-life balance? Like, how can I eat? How can I be mindful of my eating healthy? Becoming a better person, and also working to accomplish everything I want to accomplish in life, and combining everything all together and still being healthy and emotionally stable. How can I do that?
It's a lot. That's the thing. Back in the day, life was very hard, but it was simple.
Mm.
I got up, I found food, hopefully, or somebody else did. I did my hard work in the community. We hopefully didn't get eaten by animals. We didn't eat poisonous berries. And then it got dark. I went to sleep and then I woke up and I did the whole thing over again. So it was very simple. There weren't a lot of options, but it was really hard. Like I had to work really hard. I had to run away from animals sometimes.
Mm.
Well, nowadays, life is very easy. It's just incredibly complicated,
Mm.
right? I can push a button on my phone and food shows up. I mean, that is really easy.
Yes.
So you have to decide, are you worth it? Are you worth taking the time and energy to make the hard choices? And I hope that everybody determines that they are worth it.
Mm.
One thing that might be helpful is to articulate for yourself your goals, your values, and your priorities. And when I do this in a training, we'll have people write these things down. And very often they didn't make their own list. Like I didn't put myself on the list of priorities. And I think that's very telling. And yet this thing requires effort, right? So when you identify what your goals, values, and priorities are, you can then determine, am I spending my time and energy in ways that I say are important to me?
Mm.
And a lot of times, maybe you did put yourself on the list, but then you look and you're like, yeah, except I'm not really doing anything that reflects that I am a priority in my life. So I think you first have to get to that place that you have determined I'm important enough to take care of.
Mm.
And then you have to establish systems and routines to make it all happen, because that's the thing. We only are forever going to have 24 hours in the day. And now we have more to do, more options, more expectations, more demands. But ultimately, this thing is often the one that gets neglected. And
Yes.
so it's either do a little hard work now or have a lot of hard work to do later. And that is something I discovered in my own life, right? Easy, 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 really, really hard.
Mm.
And so now I'm like, no, let me just more often than not make the hard choice, and then hopefully I'll avoid harder later. And
Mm.
a lot of times I'm working with people who are in the harder later phase. And if we can avoid that altogether, that's ideal. But that means you have to do a little bit of the work all along the way. Again, it's consistency, and it doesn't have to be, overwhelming, but appreciate that little things are going to add up to an outcome.
Mm. That's true. That's very good. Wow. So, as a closing remark, what would you tell someone out there who's trying to become a better being, who's trying, struggling so hard to have good or healthy eating habits, or just to improve one's lifestyle for the long time, not just for a short period of time, but for the rest of his or her life? What would you tell that person?
Actually, what I'll do for you is I'm going to send you this health habit assessment that I have. And I think that's a really good way. You can share it with the listeners to just get an evaluation of where you actually are in your own health and well being.
Mm.
And once you take that assessment, you can then determine, okay, what am I ready and willing to work on? Recognizing that you're not going to be able to do it all and you shouldn't do it all at once. So start small, pick one thing. Maybe it is nutrition, maybe it's the mindset, maybe it's, oh, I need to disconnect from technology a little more.
Mm.
But then put a real strategy in place, not just I'm going to try to eat better. That's a statement,
Yeah.
not a strategy. So, specifically, what are the things I'm going to do? What does that even mean? What does eat better mean?
Mm.
So, gain some clarity, get it out of your head, and really be thoughtful about it. And then identify what potential obstacles are going to come in your way and what are going to be the strategies around those obstacles. But, it is a journey. And I think for me, one of the biggest shifts in my own mindset was to let go of this idea of the result. We're so focused on the result and the outcome.
Mm.
And yet, if I just do what I need to do to get that outcome, there's a very good chance I'll get that outcome.
Yes.
Even if I don't get that outcome, if I've done really good things, I know it's still impacted and had a good benefit to me.
Mm.
So I learned to let go of the outcome and focus on the actions instead, because I'm in control of actions. I'm not in control of outcomes.
True.
And that, again, it's part of the mindset. But you have to have patience with yourself. You have to have patience with the process, but you also have to do the work.
Mm,
So, those are kind of the keys to getting moving forward on the journey, and to recognize that the journey's not linear. It doesn't just go like that.
mm,
It's up and round, and sometimes it spirals, and sometimes it's a big hill, and sometimes it's tiny. That's actually the journey. That's
yeah,
not failure or a setback. That's what the journey is.
mm.
So embrace it. Just embrace the journey.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for everything I've been able to learn from you today. I've learned the importance of patience, the importance of taking responsibility for the actions and not just looking at the results or the outcome. I've learned, how to eat better. I now know the meaning of PFF, protein, fat, fiber, and I know that fat is very important for me and eating healthy is good for me. And thank you so much for everything you've taught me today. And I hope everyone who has listened would be able to take one or two things from this, like I did also, to have a better, life and you become much more mentally healthy and maybe also emotionally stable. That would be so awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.